The dark fate of notorious killers, from the criminals' lairs to brutal ends. When we think about notorious criminals, the image that often comes to mind is one of them spending the rest of their lives behind bars, serving out their sentences in relative isolation. However, for some of the most infamous killers in history, their prison sentences were abruptly cut short in shocking and violent ways. The world of prison life is fraught with its own perils, and the stories of these criminals who met brutal ends while incarcerated paint a chilling picture of the violence that can lurk within the confines of prison walls. In this exploration, we'll delve into the harrowing tales of notorious killers whose lives were tragically ended by their fellow inmates or other forms of prison violence. Donald Harvey, the Angel of Death's grisly end. Donald Harvey, known as the Angel of Death, earned his grim moniker through a series of chilling murders carried out while working in hospitals. Operating between 1970 and 1987, Harvey confessed to killing at least 87 people, although he was formally charged with 37 counts of murder. His killing spree took place in Ohio and Kentucky, where he worked as an orderly and nurse's aide. Harvey's methods of killing were as varied as they were horrifying. He used arsenic and cyanide, administered lethal doses of insulin, and even suffocated patients. His depravity extended to turning off life support systems and contaminating 4 fluids with hepatitis B. One of his particularly gruesome methods involved using a coat hanger to cause fatal injuries. Despite his calculated methods and the frequency of his crimes, Harvey managed to evade capture for 17 years. His downfall came in March 1987, when the sudden death of John Powell, a patient in a coma, triggered an investigation. A post-mortem revealed cyanide in Powell's system, leading to suspicion of Harvey. Further scrutiny revealed Harvey's previous dismissal from the Cincinnati VA hospital for theft linked to occult practices. Harvey confessed to using cyanide to end Powell's life, claiming it was an act of compassion. By August 1987, Harvey had confessed to 24 murders and was sentenced to 3 life terms. In November, he admitted to 9 more deaths, which resulted in an additional 20-year sentence. Harvey's life behind bars ended violently. On March 28, 2017, he was found severely beaten in his cell. He died 2 days later from blunt force trauma inflicted by fellow inmate James Elliott. Harvey's brutal end serves as a grim reminder of the violent realities that can emerge within prison environments. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker's violent demise. Richard Ramirez, infamously known as the Night Stalker, struck terror across Southern California from 1984 to 1985. His reign of violence lasted about 14 months, during which he was responsible for the deaths of 13 people, numerous sexual assaults, and a range of other violent crimes, including burglary and attempted murder. Ramirez's modus operandi was both erratic and terrifying. He selected victims without any clear pattern, invading their homes and committing heinous acts with an assortment of weapons. His unpredictability made him a particularly elusive target for law enforcement. His actions were further compounded by his blatant display of indifference and his disturbing calling card, the pentagram symbol left at crime scenes. The media frenzy surrounding Ramirez was fueled not only by his crimes but also by his unsettling demeanor. Throughout his trial, Ramirez exhibited a shocking lack of remorse. He smirked at reporters and flaunted a pentagram tattoo, which became a symbol of his taunting attitude. The trial captured national attention, not just for the horrific nature of his crimes but also for his brazen attitude. In August 1985, Ramirez was identified by residents in East Los Angeles who had seen his image in newspapers. A group of local citizens, enraged by his crimes, detained Ramirez until the police arrived. This community intervention played a crucial role in his capture. Ramirez was eventually convicted in 1989 and sentenced to death. He spent the remainder of his life in prison before dying on June 7, 2013, from complications related to B-cell lymphoma. Charles Schmid, the Pied Piper of Tucson's grisly fate. Charles Howard Schmid Jr., the Pied Piper of Tucson, was notorious for his disturbing crimes that belied his bizarre appearance. Standing only 5 feet 3 inches, Schmid wore large cowboy boots and dyed his hair black to create a more intimidating presence. Despite his efforts to appear menacing, his criminal actions were far more sinister. Schmid's criminal activities began in 1964 with the murder of 15-year-old Alan Rowe. Schmid, with his girlfriend Mary French and friend John Saers, lured Rowe to the desert, where he was killed and buried in a shallow grave. Schmid's subsequent victims included the Fritz sisters, Gretchen and Wendy. In August 1965, Schmid murdered Gretchen, who was in a secret relationship with him, and later killed her younger sister Wendy to prevent her from revealing his secrets. Schmid's downfall came when his friend Richard Burns became concerned about his erratic behavior. Burns eventually went to the authorities, leading to an investigation and the discovery of the burial sites. Schmid was arrested and convicted in 1966, receiving the death penalty, which was later commuted to a 50-year prison sentence. His case attracted significant media attention, underscoring the chilling nature of his crimes. Albert DeSalvo, the Boston Strangler's mysterious end. Albert DeSalvo, known as the Boston Strangler, terrorized the Boston area between 1962 and 1964 with a series of brutal murders targeting single women. Despite an extensive investigation, the identity of the Strangler remained unknown until DeSalvo, a convicted criminal, confessed to the murders in 1965. DeSalvo's confession, however, was met with skepticism due to the lack of physical evidence linking him to the crimes. He was convicted in 1967, but the debate over his true role in the murders continued. The case took a new turn in 2013 with advancements in DNA technology. DNA testing on semen found on the final victim, Mary Sullivan, showed a genetic match with DeSalvo's nephew, suggesting a familial connection. Although this finding implied a link between DeSalvo and the murders, further forensic analysis did not provide conclusive evidence linking him directly to Sullivan's death. DeSalvo, who had been sentenced to life in prison, managed to escape from Bridgewater State Hospital in 1967 along with 2 other inmates. In a note left behind, he claimed that the escape was intended to highlight the poor conditions of the facility and his struggles with mental health. The fates of these notorious killers highlight the often brutal and violent realities of life in prison. Their stories not only reveal the shocking ways in which some criminals meet their ends but also underscore the complexities of their criminal actions and the profound impact they had on their victims and society. The violence within prison walls serves as a stark reminder of the unpredictable and often dangerous nature of incarceration, where even the most notorious criminals can face a grim and brutal end. In conclusion, the fates of these notorious killers highlight the often brutal and violent realities of life in prison. Their stories not only reveal the shocking ways in which some criminals meet their ends but also underscore the complexities of their criminal actions and the profound impact they had on their victims and society. The violence within prison walls serves as a stark reminder of the unpredictable and often dangerous nature of incarceration, where even the most notorious criminals can face a grim and brutal end.